Hey everybody, it's Boardman21, and today's build is going to be the Spellblade built around Flame Reave. We're going to be using Flame Reave to proc fireballs, and then instead of focus, we're going to use Mana Strike to get our mana back, which will actually happen pretty quick. And on top of that, we'll have the usual Flame Ward, and then for a little bit of damage, we also have Enchant Weapon so that all of our Ignite stacks can have increased damage and take effect all at once. This isn't going to be your OP build. This isn't a super high DPS build. It is endgame viable. It is 100 wave plus viable. But if you've been wanting to use Flame Reave and make it at least a somewhat viable build just to play around with it, this one's a good starting point. See what you can do with it. It does require some uniques, but we'll get into that. And it's just actually a really fun build, and if you use it with the Cinder Song, you get a lot of fireballs, which has been really fun to play around with, especially when they home in. But with that, let's go ahead and get into the skills. We're going to be running Enchant Weapon, Mana Strike, Fireball, Flame Ward, and Flame Reave. For Enchant Weapon, we have 3 points in Concentration, 5 points in Immolating Strike, 1 point in Burst of Fire, 1 point in Flame Blast, 5 points in Eternal Flames for that increased ignite duration at all times and doubled while it's active, 1 point in Conflagrate, and 4 points in Searing Conflagration. And this is going to consume all of your ignite stacks every time that you activate Enchant Weapon, and it's going to give it a 200% damage boost. That is a huge amount of damage because we are doing a massive amount of ignite stacks. We have Mana Strike, which we are basically using to get our mana back, so you want as much mana with the least amount of times casting it. This is not a Mana Strike build. This is a Flame Reave build, and we're only focused on that, so we're only using Mana Strike so that we can get mana back without having to stand in one spot using Focus to regen. So we have 3 points in Arcanist Blade for +9 mana gained, 3 points in Ward Strike to get a little bit of ward, +9. We have 2 points in Swift Sap, 1 point in Sprint Blade, and 4 points in Mana Drain. This gives you 80% more mana, and then it unlocks Mana Cleave, which increases the area it hits by 100%. It doubles the mana that you gain. It does give it a 4-second cooldown, but if you hit 2 mobs or more, you can refill your entire mana pool with just 1 hit, so it's well worth it. We also have 5 points in Rage Sap for that global damage, and then 1 point in Rune Sap, so when we cast it, we do get 5% more spell damage, which isn't huge, but it helps Fireball 5%, so it's kind of helpful. We then have Fireball. This isn't going to be our huge damage dealer, but each hit with Fireball does do all of your Ignite stacks, so it is useful, especially when you have it doing homing and pierce, to get a whole bunch of extra Ignite stacks on bosses. So we have 2 points in Adept, 3 points in Flammability, and 1 point in Seeker's Ash for that homing. We also have 3 points in Mana Spear for that -3 mana cost. Since we are not using Cinder Song or any kind of Scepter or anything that makes spells cost 3 mana less, you do need the 3 points here. It's very important that you keep Fireball costing 0 mana. If you make it cost any mana at all, your mana is just going to disappear so fast, it's not going to be super useful. But if you keep it at 0, and with Flame Reave only costing 12 mana, you can actually cast Flame Reave a lot and get a lot of fireballs, and you get more damage out of it that way rather than doing a bunch of projectiles and your mana being gone in 2 hits. We also have 2 points in Winged Fire for some speed and range, and then 4 points in Piercing Heat for that 100% pierce chance, and 132% increased mana cost off of 0 is still 0, so it's still free. If you take anything else like extra projectiles, your mana cost is already going to be ridiculous. It's going to be at double digits, and it's not going to be worth it. And then we have 5 points in Conflagration, which matches up with the Enchant Weapon, and this is going to give you 125% more ignite chance with your hits with Fireball. We then have Flame Ward, which we are using obviously for ward and for some fire damage. We have 3 points in Stalwart Defense, 3 points in Desperate Defense, 3 points in Fuel the Flames, 1 point in Invigorate. And the 3 points in Desperate Defense, this was set up when we were running Enzanguius. We actually got rid of that and we're just running a straight health bid. Since we are using the weapon Volcanus and we're getting 10% of fire damage as leech life, it just made more sense to not use a missing life or a low life build. So we will be moving these 3 points and we'll be putting them into concentrated shielding instead for that more ward. We also have 5 points in dilation and 5 points in through flames for that added fire damage. And then for Flame Reave, this is your main skill that we'll be using. We're using it to proc Fireball as much as possible, and we're using it to cost the least amount of mana so we can cast it as much as possible. We have it going out and back to get as many hits as possible, and we're trying to get it to go as far out as possible, so you want to increase the speed. Unfortunately for the mana efficiency, you lose speed. So we have 4 points in Dancing Flames to where we get 80% mana efficiency, but we have 32% less speed. We made up with that by putting 2 points in Infernal Expanse that gave us 30% of that speed back. We also have 2 points in Mana Fused Flurry, 3 points in Rending Ire, 4 points in Catalyst of Fire for that 40% chance to cast Fireball on every hit, which is actually 80% on each cast because your Flame Reave will go out and then it will come back, which allows it to hit twice. So we have 3 points in Heat Wave, 1 point in Ember Infusion, and then 1 point in Flame Caller so that it returns to you, and that's how you get that double hit. I also recommend that if you have a lot of mana and you don't care about mana, that you also put into World Fire, where it makes it a circle around you. This does increase the mana cost by 20, but it's pretty spectacular how it's a huge area around you and it hits all enemies, and if you still have Fireball for free, it's just an amazing amount of Fireballs, especially with Cinder Song. It's just crazy. Getting into passives. In the Mage base class, we have 7 points in Arcanist, 8 points in Scholar, and 5 points in Mage Flurry. We have 8 points in the Sorcerer. It's all going to be in Mana Shell. And then we have 76 points in Spellblade. We got 8 points in Arcane Warden, 8 points in Infused Weapon, 10 points in Infernal Imbuement, 5 points in Spellweaver, 3 points in Spell Thirst, 4 points in Combat Mage, 8 points in Prismatic Blade, 15 points in Triple Strike, and 10 points in Mind Slayer with 5 points in Mind Flame. And then for items, for idols, you really want 4 of these 1x4s. The Sweltering Huge Arcane Idol of Kindling. You can have up to a 42% chance to ignite with these, which is huge. If you had 4 of those, that'd be a 160% chance to ignite. You would also get 12 melee fire damage. As you can see, we only have 1. The other ones that we're going to be running is some chance to ignite on hit and ward gained on melee hit. We have 2 of those, and the last one's just some extra health with frostbite effect, and then we have an increased mana on top of ward when casting Flame Ward. We are running a lot of uniques. There are a lot of ignite uniques, so that's what made this really spectacular. It's also my first ever build using Volcanus. So I've always kind of looked at Volcanus and I've said this is a weapon that seems like it should be good, but I just never really found a use for it, and it's really only for the Spellblade. Like, I think I tried it on Paladin one time, it didn't work out too well. But on the Spellblade, it's actually pretty amazing for a Flame Reave build. You get that huge increased melee physical damage and then huge melee fire damage. You get increased fire damage, and then the 7% of fire damage released as health is huge because that counts as fire damage over time. Ignite is fire damage. So you're actually getting life back, like health regen basically, for that 4 seconds that Ignite's doing damage. And then there's the 10% chance to cast Flame Shards on melee hit, which is pretty cool. You'll see them spike out. They don't spike from the hit, they spike from your body, so you kind of have to be close in the combat, and they don't home or anything. They just kind of shoot out like icicles in very specific directions, and you'll see that in the video and the gameplay. We are also running Calamity for that 150% chance to ignite on hit with fire skills. Fireball and Flame Reave both count. We also have the Prism Wraps instead of Enzanguias. This was for some more of the fire leech, so we get another 2.3% of that fire damage leeched as health. Of course, this is only on crit, so it's not all of the time. And then we have Soulfire. You know, I got one of those perfectly rolled 200% chance to ignite on a hit with fire skills on my Soulfire. So this is like a perfectly rolled Soulfire, like almost as good as it gets. We're 1 health shy, but other than that, this is like a perfect Soulfire, so I use that on any Ignite build that I do. I keep switching that around. And then for defense, you're basically, yeah, like our rings, you just have increased set dodge. Obviously, you can't have the 4-piece because we don't have a crafted relic. We're using the unique, but with your 3-piece, we still have enough dodge that we're sitting at 66%, and we have over 100% glancing blow. So you can see we also put melee attack speed on the gloves to try and get some melee attack speed. But yeah, with that, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys some gameplay.